You're doing the right things. At least you're doing what all the books and videos are telling you to do. But you just aren't making the progress you want to make. Or at least not as fast as you were hoping. All the books seem to imply that if you just sit down and write, all's gonna be fine, right? I mean, that's what it seems like. But you're starting to realize that that's just not how it works. You're kind of stuck in a rut and you just don't know how to get out. So I'm gonna give you 3 steps to get out of the rut and get you on your way to becoming a better screenwriter. Let's jump in. Step number 1, stop looking for a shortcut. And before I go any further, yes, the irony isn't lost on me that I'm talking about 3 steps to becoming a better screenwriter, and the first step is stop looking for 3 easy steps to whatever. I mean, I get it. At the same time, the steps I'm giving you are not a checklist. They're more of like a lifestyle. These are not steps that you take one time and then you're done. They're choices that you have to make over and over again. So when I say stop looking for a shortcut, I mean stop looking all the time for any shortcuts. They're not there. Shortcuts in screenwriting just don't exist. And before I go any further, some disclosure here. I personally want to know what other information is out there and being touted as being helpful for screenwriters. So I do subscribe to several email lists about screenwriting or screenwriting services, and I look at other videos and channels on YouTube and just, all around, just trying to see like what are other people saying. And frankly, some are good and helpful, and there are some that aren't. But here's the big thing that I've noticed. So many of those emails and lists and videos and free downloads, whatever, they're all about shortcuts. 10 easy steps to get an agent. 5 steps to sell your script, 7 steps to get your movie made. And candidly, all that stuff kind of gets the bile rising in me because that's just not how it works. There's no 10 easy steps for anything, unless you want to talk about the 1 easy step to quitting screenwriting. Okay, that's 1 step. That one exists. But otherwise, there's not a shortcut. Screenwriting is a process. And I'm circling back to that in a second. And you have to embrace the process. There was a phrase I once heard, and I have no idea where I heard it, but it 100% applies to screenwriting and filmmaking and pretty much any other creative endeavor. Embrace the suck. It's hard. It's work. It's hard work. And yes, it's rewarding. Frankly, I love it. I love writing. I love teaching and mentoring other writers. I flat out just love it. But even though I love it, every day is hard. And you have to embrace the suck. Embrace the fact that it's gonna be hard. And in those moments when it's hard, that's when we're tempted to look for a shortcut. I mean, there's gotta be an easier way. We start thinking like, there's gotta be an easier way, and we go searching for a shortcut. But here's the truth. There are no easy ways in screenwriting. There are more efficient ways, yes, but not easy. And this is what advanced screenwriters know. They know the particular story they're trying to tackle isn't the same story as the last one they told. They will need different tools from their toolbox, tools that have taken them time to learn how to use and how to use properly. And then, in this moment, when they need it, that tool gets used. But here's what a lot of people who want to be screenwriters try and do. They find a book, try to replicate the formula posited in the book, and think that when they get done, they should have a solid screenplay. Because, I followed the formula. The issue is the formula isn't there to represent a shortcut. It's there to light the path of the journey you have to make. And writing a screenplay, if it's like a journey, is saying, hey, I want to go to New York City. But you don't suddenly poof and teleport there with a bingo, here's my screenplay. No, my friend. You have to walk 1,500 miles through forests and swamps, avoiding wildlife and whoever knows what else is out there. It's gonna be hard. And you need to embrace the suck and stop looking for shortcuts. Step number 2, screenwriting is a process, not an event. Screenwriting is not about having written. It's about writing. So things like I paid the bills, I cleaned the house, I went on a date, I applied for a job, I made the bed, I flew on a plane, I wrote a script. All those are events. They're all events. And yet we treat screenwriting like an event. Did you write today? Okay, that's the way wrong question. How about this one? Did you get better at the craft of writing today? Or what did you learn about screenwriting today? Now that doesn't mean you have to learn something new every day. It doesn't. But it does mean that you are looking to learn something new every day. You're open to it. It means you're viewing screenwriting as a process, not an event. Every advanced writer I know looks at each script they write as a learning opportunity. Did I learn something new today? Did I get better at something today? Did I avoid that mistake I tend to always make? Did I avoid that today? And these questions are focused on the development of the writer and not on the production of a script. Writing a script, that's an event. Getting better as a writer, that's a process. And if you want to become a better screenwriter, that's a process. And what tends to happen though is many who want to be a screenwriter, they get so focused on their one script. This is my one script. I'm working on my one script. Their only focus is on the script and not on them as a writer. And they're focused on fixing that one thing. What's the one way to do this thing in the script? I got to make it perfect. I've got to make it right. And while that's not a bad thing in and of itself, if the questions end with that one script, there's no learning, no growth is taking place. And that's a big problem. The screenwriter isn't getting any better. In fact, I would actually argue that that screenwriter will probably never improve enough to actually be any good or have a shot at selling anything because they're so focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on creating a product instead of on creating a writer. And when you begin to understand that screenwriting is a process, you stop concerning yourself with the right or wrong way to do something. Instead, you concern yourself with what is better or what is worse. So instead of what's right or wrong, it's what is better or what is worse. New screenwriters usually concerned about the rules. What's right? Rules are event-based. Advanced writers are concerned with the reason behind the rules, and they make sure they're either 100% following the rules or they're breaking them for very specific reasons that don't go against the reason for the rule in the first place. In other words, advanced writers understand the rules are there to enhance the process, not limit the writing for that one event. But when you make that shift and you start focusing on screenwriting as a process, that screenwriters and screenwriter development is a process, you also begin to recognize that there are elements that need to be addressed right now in their screenplay and what elements can wait. So I'm writing and I can figure out and I can suss out, hey, you know what? I don't need to worry about this right now. I'll come back to that because I'm not so concerned about the event. I just know it's a process. So some lines of dialogue, those can wait. New writers, they get hung up on dialogue too early in the drafting process. An advanced writer, they just get the story beat there. They'll come back, they'll fix it later. It's a draft. Revisions come because it's a process, not an event. Step number 3 to becoming a better writer. Writing doesn't mean you're writing. Now, if I haven't stepped on your toes yet so far in this video, well, it might be coming. If I have, hit the like button. If I haven't, hit the like button anyway. If you're finding value, I really do appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't, because as far as YouTube is concerned, you aren't really watching a video unless you interact in some way. So hitting buttons, commenting about where I'm stepping on your toes, questions you have, all of that. And seriously, I really do appreciate you doing all those things because it does help others find this channel. But just like watching a YouTube video without interacting doesn't mean you're really watching it, at least according to YouTube, the same applies to writing. Just because you're writing something doesn't mean you're actually writing anything. But Jake, you say, I've written a lot. I'm a much better writer now than I was before. And I'm sure that's true. Every time you write, you do get better. But let me give you a different example. I've mentioned in a couple of other videos that one of the things I do just to kind of get out of my own head is I referee youth soccer. Now, I've played soccer since I was a kid. I've coached kids, I've coached high school teams, I've reffed, I've been around the game a lot. And I cannot even count how many games I've played in or watched or reffed. Honestly, as a referee, just candidly, like I'm pretty good at it, in part because I've been around the game so much. I think the first time I played soccer was when I was 7 or 8. So like over 40 years, I've been around the game. Now, of course, I'm gonna learn things just by being around it, just by doing it. Yeah, of course, I'm gonna learn. But I really only started refereeing with serious intent about 7 years ago. And I'd been around the game for a long time. But as soon as I stepped onto the field as a referee, I realized there were so many things that I didn't know. So many things I needed to pay attention to that I'd never paid attention to before. In fact, I've had to adopt a similar attitude to refereeing that I'm talking with you about right now about screenwriting. There are no shortcuts. You have to put in the work. You got to put in the time. You got to get into shape. All that stuff, it takes time. There is a process. Yes, games happen, But no one ever refs a perfect game, unless the game is a forfeit because there's no playing, so there's no missed calls, so perfect game. And just because I have experience on the field, as a player, as a ref, as a coach, in and of itself, that doesn't make me better. The experience alone isn't enough. I have to be working to get better in the midst of it. And this is true for screenwriting. If you're just writing to write, yes, you will pick up on some things. You're going to notice some things. And yes, something you write 6 months from now is going to be better than something you write today. All of that is totally true. And if you want to just write for fun and pleasure, then just keep writing. Just keep doing that. But if you genuinely want to get better at writing, like genuinely improve, then writing just to say you have written isn't good enough. I saw a video recently about someone talking about having written a whole lot of screenplays over the past year. And doing the math, it averaged out to about 1 screenplay every 2 to 3 weeks, which that's a lot. And in the video, this was being touted as a huge win, a major accomplishment. And to be sure, writing 20 or so scripts in a year is a major accomplishment. Like, that's a big deal. But what made me sad for this particular writer was that he thought the way he was going about it, just by writing multiple scripts to get better at writing, just writing, because that's going to make me better, was not actually what was happening. Now, yes, I'm sure that his scripts at the end of the year were better than the ones that he wrote at the beginning. But the focus was on getting words on the page and not on getting the best words on the page in the best possible way for that writer. And it made me sad. It made me sad because he was probably solidifying some bad writing habits by just trying to get through as many scripts as possible. And even though he was excited about this accomplishment, I hurt for him because he's thinking that he's infinitely closer to making it as a screenwriter because he's written all these scripts, when in fact, he probably didn't move the needle all that much. Now, full disclosure, I haven't read any of his scripts, so I don't know for sure. My speculation is based on my years of teaching, interacting with new writers and my clients and students, and this holds true. Writing to write does not mean you're going to get better. Having a solid screenplay requires 2 critical components: having a story to tell and telling it well. If you want to improve as a screenwriter, you have to work on both components, and there are no shortcuts. And it is a learning process that involves hard work and embracing the suck. And while you absolutely must write to get better at writing, like you have to write, okay, you've got to write. But the very act of writing doesn't mean you're going to improve as much as you might hope to improve. So just because you're writing doesn't mean you're going to get better. At some point, you have to have some focused work. You've got to have some focused attention. You got to pay attention to specific things. And it's not where you're focusing your attention on trying to write a script to sell, right? That's an event. But where you're trying to write a script, maybe that takes place in one location to challenge yourself so you can learn how to get better at interpersonal conflict. Or maybe you write a story with one character so you can learn how to improve at showing and not telling, and at crafting internal conflict, because there's just one character. So internal conflict, external conflict, and how can I show and not tell? Maybe you take a course, a screenwriting course, online or at a local college, just to focus on scene writing or character building or whatever the topic at hand is. The point I'm driving at is this: if you want to get better, you have to actively work at it. Writing alone isn't enough. You have to be analyzing it, pulling it apart, studying, reading, practicing, revising, all of it. Focused effort produces massive results. With unfocused effort, you might hit the target once in a while, maybe. One other thing with the whole writing isn't writing, and then I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions to consider and reflect on, plus a couple of other tidbits that I'm excited to talk to you about. The other thing, the process of writing a script is in many ways fairly straightforward, which is why most writers think they can just kind of do it on their own. I mean, come up with an idea, outline it so you know you have a story, write it, then revise it, and usually the 5 steps to writing a screenplay ends with then sell it. So come up with an idea, you outline it, you write it, you revise it, then you sell it. It's easy, right? The issue is, do you even know when you're writing? So you've got this process, you're working through the process. The issue is, do you even know what options you have at each step of that process, and which option is best for the screenplay that you're writing, the story you're writing, or even best for you as a storyteller? Because what works for one writer won't work for another. But if you don't know what options you have, How do you know which one's the best one for you? So yeah, there is a kind of a template, if you will, for how to write a screenplay, but there are other factors like which is the best option for you at each point of that template, which is the most efficient way of writing for you at each point in that template. Or the bigger factor, and this one really might get you, is how do you know if what you're writing even has a chance at getting noticed if it's the best version of itself? And this is what a lot of writers don't realize. They think any solid story is a good story, and more than that, is a good story for the screen. But that's not true. Not every story is a good one to tell on the screen. Not every story is one that's good enough that's going to get butts in seats in a theater or people wanting to watch it at home. And definitely not every story is visually exciting, because it's just not. Film is a visual medium, and stories have to have engaging visual elements. It doesn't matter how good the story is. You've got to have those pieces. So let's back up and let's say that you decide you're going to write, and you're going to write a lot, and that as a result of all of that writing, your writing is going to get better. And let's assume the best, like best case scenario, and that all of that actually happens, and you're writing this thing and you're like, hey, okay, I think this is going to be good. It's all good. We're ready to go. How do you know your stuff is actually any good? And if your answer is, well, because I've written 10 or 20 scripts or however many there is, like, of course I'm good because I've written that many. Just because you've written that many doesn't mean you're any good. I'm sorry, that's just the harsh truth right there. Yes, having written does mean you have a better shot. It means you've worked through the process and you know what to expect. It means you have the perseverance to get to the end on multiple scripts, because many people think they want to be screenwriters and they never get to the end of one script. So you're definitely ahead of the curve here, right? You finished multiple scripts, but it doesn't mean that any of your scripts are any good. And until you really start to evaluate whether your projects have any commercial viability, you can't get to the next level as a screenwriter. For me, this was an important hurdle to cross. There were things I liked writing, things that I loved, that I wanted to see on screen. Because you hear people say, hey, write what you want to watch. And that's true to a point. But my stuff wasn't commercially viable enough. Yes, I was writing, but I wasn't doing the hard work along the way until I realized that writing isn't necessarily writing. Now, whenever I write, or any of my students write, significant time is spent on coming up with a commercially viable or marketable product before the script is written. I mean, if you can't get people excited about your story before you even start writing it, why would they be excited about it after you've written it? Why would you spend all that time, however long it's going to take you to write the script, if they're not even excited about the idea to begin with? Why would you do that? Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go and query producers before you start writing a script, although admittedly, I have done that. It does mean you need people in your life who can help you vet solid ideas, because you don't want to be just writing to write. You want to be writing to get better and writing something that could help advance your career as a screenwriter. So let me give you 5 questions to ask yourself if you feel like you're stuck in a rut and not evolving as a screenwriter. Question number 1, when I consider the process of writing a script, do I do the same thing every time for every script I write? If your actual process is exactly the same for every script you're writing, doesn't matter what the story is, your process is exactly the same, you are event focused and not process focused. You're just trying to get to the end of the script. You're trying to get to the end of the script. You're trying to get to the end of the script. That's event focused, not process focused. So consider whether or not you're doing the same thing for every script or not. Another question, am I constantly learning? If you're not constantly learning, you're in trouble. Now, kudos to you if you're still watching. That's an indication you want to learn. You've got to be learning. Thank you for watching, by the way. Question number 3, am I looking for shortcuts or am I looking for efficiency? Okay, shortcuts aren't going to get you anywhere. Efficiency will. If you have a broader set of skills and knowledge, okay, so I've got all these skills, I've got all this knowledge, now I can make an informed decision about the best way to work through my current script, this current situation. I'm going to find an efficient way to navigate it. But if you don't have a broad base of knowledge, you either do it the same way you've always done it, or you're just looking for shortcuts, that's going to be a problem. You've got to focus on being an efficient writer. Shortcuts only do you a disservice. Question number 4 to ask yourself, before I start a script, do I know, like really know, that the script is commercially viable? If you don't know and you want to get paid for your writing, you're just wasting your time if you don't know the answer, even if your skill level isn't quite there yet. Okay, so some people will say like, hey, but my skill level is not quite there yet, so I can write whatever I want. Stop getting into bad habits. Get into better habits. If you want to sell what you're writing, then you need to start thinking about writing commercially viable things. If you were to write the best version of that script, because you might, even though you don't know everything, you might end up writing the best version of that script, and then you've got a chance to do something with it. So is it commercially viable? And if not, you are event and not process focused. Think about the process. Here's who I want to become. So start working on that process. I want to be a writer that does this. So start moving that way. The last question to ask yourself, do I only have writing goals or do I have learning goals? Now, if your goals are only about writing, they're just about the writing, like I want to get X number of scripts done, okay, you might be in trouble. Make sure you're folding in goals for learning about the craft. That might be things that you learn outside of screenwriting. So I'm going to read a book or whatever. It might be something that you choose to write because you want to learn how to do that thing better. When I was in film school, one of the things I did was I intentionally wrote scripts that forced me out of my comfort zone. I wanted to learn how to handle things that I wasn't always comfortable with. And the lessons I learned were invaluable to me. So have learning goals. Working through those questions, even regularly kind of coming back to them, just working through them, making sure that you are improving on the process, all of that kind of stuff is really going to help you move and become a much better writer. Now, I want to share a couple of quick things with you that I'm excited to share with you. First, I'm looking for 10 people who want to supercharge their screenwriting and help me pilot a new iteration of my Screenplay Navigator coaching course. Now, if you don't know, the Screenplay Navigator is my coaching program where I help transform you from someone who knows you want to be a screenwriter and knows you want to tell stories that matter to a world that needs to hear those stories, into a screenwriter who has the tools and abilities to do just that, to tell stories that matter. You'll have the confidence to navigate the entire screenwriting process, and you're going to know whether or not what you're doing is good or not. Currently, it's a 4-month program. You kind of start it's 4 months, but I'm looking for 10 people to help me try a new iteration that is a work at your own pace program. And it allows for a lot more interaction with others in the program, plus regular conversations with me. To sweeten the pot, I'm doing 2 massive things. 1, I've dropped the price significantly, I might add. And 2, I'm giving all 10 people free access to my Screenwriting Fast Track Premium course, which is the biggest one. It's a massive course, over 60 lessons, lots of writing exercises, and more. Okay, so all of that stuff. Now, if you want to participate in the Screenwriting Fast Track course just on its own, there's links below for that. But if you want to be one of the first 10 in the new Screenplay Navigator, the work at your own pace, the 2.0 version, there is a link below to apply and set up a free call with me. I'm looking for people who don't want shortcuts, who want to make themselves into better storytellers, who want to help others along the way. Writing is about community. Writing is better when done in community. So if you're interested in that, click on the Screenplay Navigator link below and we can talk about it. I can answer any questions you may have. I'll have some questions for you. And if it seems like it's going to be a good fit for us, then we'll talk about next steps. I am really excited about this new version of the Screenplay Navigator, but I'm looking for 10 of you to help me make it as good as it can possibly be. So if you're interested, click on the link. You can also email me if the link for whatever reason is not working. You can email me, ask@bigredstripe.com. Just email Jake. The second thing I want to share with you, I got a couple of emails and a comment or 2 on videos asking about ways to just help support this channel. And after looking into it, exploring some options, I'm venturing into Patreon. And there's some swag opportunities, some discounts to my online store. I'm also archiving some of my older YouTube videos, so those are only going to be accessed there. So depending on whichever level you choose, even for those of you who just kind of live by the go big or go home motto, there are some opportunities for you to work with me one-on-one with a current script of yours if you're interested in doing that. So if you're interested in supporting this channel, and in turn me. The Patreon link is below for more information. If you don't want to, you're unable to, no worries, I take no offense. That's a lot of stuff today, and hopefully this has all been helpful to you. If it has, please be sure to like, subscribe, bell, all those things. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I want you to be a better screenwriter, and I want your path to success to be easier and faster than mine was. And if you want to be one of the first 10 people in the Screenplay Navigator 2.0 with the free premium screenwriting fast track course, be sure to click that link, apply for a free call. We can see if that'll work out for both of us. Last, when you go to tell a story that matters. See you later.